Hey, listeners, Paddy here. The following is a bonus app with just Alex and I. We talk Jordan Peele, Eggboys, and the road to hell being paved with adverbs. Not one of our more structured episodes, but I think it's a fun one. Enjoy.
Welcome to Prose and Cons, a podcast by writers for writers, brought to you by Precipice Fiction. Precipice Fiction would like to acknowledge the people of the Eora and Durag nations as the original custodians and storytellers of the land this podcast was created on.
All fall back on. I'm going to jump straight into Eggboy then, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, sure. I'm actually really proud of that story. I know you haven't finished it yet, but I spent like literal months working on it. Like I got it done and I was like, I've done this in a couple of days, and I'm like, I really, really like this. I want to make sure this is really good. And so, yeah, I spent a lot of time on it.
It shows. The polish is really, really good. And man, it's not first person, is it? It's a close second person. But
yes.
It's funny because second person feels like such a weird choice. There's no scenario where I'm like, I think second person would go for this story really well. But it really works very well here. And I guess it helps make it a little more uncanny feeling.
Yeah, there's something related to how it finishes as well that ties into that. So yeah.
Ooh, oh, you do interesting things with second person.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it was a. Anyway, that's veering into spoiler territory, so I won't talk about that.
There's a student in my class who she is the only person I've ever met who second person is her natural writing voice.
Wow.
The first time she ever wrote something for class, she just went straight into second person. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Why do you choose second person? She's like, what?
Yeah.
Like second person. And I explained second person. She's like, I don't know. That's just how that's what sounds natural to me. Only person I've ever heard of where that's the case.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because when you start writing like that, it does feel very strange. But very quickly, you fall into it and just forget that you're writing in second. Like there are only a few little instances where I had to go back and like sub out a she or an I started writing. Yeah. Like it's like once you're there, once you're in it, you're pretty much in it. It is a strange thing though. I always associate it with choose your own adventure books because I used to read Goosebumps books.
Yeah.
A choose your own adventure series.
The choose your own adventure with like the crocodile on the front and the holographic cover.
Yeah, and yes, the holographic cover, and that's how you knew. Like Diary of a Mad Mummy, and for the longest time, like I was like, I must have been dyslexic or something because like I read it as Diary of a Mad Mummy, and I'm like, so they're making cheese like in Egypt? Like
it's ancient mummy milk.
Exactly.
Tomb of the Ancient Mummy Milk. I've never read that one. Actually, I feel like I've missed out forever because like if I read it now, I won't enjoy it because it's for 8-year-olds.
Yes.
And I can never go back to it. That's a little bit sad.
Yeah. It's weird because I was thinking about this recently. Like, there's a Paul Jennings book that I read called, I think it was Unreal. And I read it.
Paul Jennings, yeah.
Yeah, he's great. I read it a while ago. And a lot of the themes, like there was this ghost story that I read that like the theme of it like still resonates with me like a crazy amount. And I'm like, I would really like to use that. But the prose, when you go back to it, you're like, oh, this is just a bit juvenile. But just the prose, like the ideas are still very strong.
When you say it, I do. I remember the ideas being great. Like that was, I think Paul Jennings was where I got my love of weird fiction.
Yeah.
Do you remember the story with the ear that starts growing on the wall and then it becomes a face growing out of the wall?
I don't think I read that one, but that's very Paul Jennings. And it was legitimately weird fiction. You're 100% right. That was just weird fiction straight up. And that's probably where I developed a love of it as well, which is just a strange idea that like maybe that in some small way has butterfly affected out to a bunch of Australian people being like, oh, I'm into weird fiction. Like this is just a thing, you know?
I think you're probably more in touch with what Australian fiction is like than I am. I really don't read much short fiction, to be honest.
What I sort of mean is that I imagine a lot of people who are starting to write now or have been writing in the last couple of years, younger writers will start to see a lot more of that because specifically of his influence. You
say younger writers, but I mean, it was like, what, 20 years ago? Like, I think we're about as young as Paul Jennings' audience.
Well, yeah, true. But like 30 for a writer is still relatively young. Like most of the guys writing today are like, late 30s, mid 40s sort of thing.
True. I remember when I went to fine arts school a billion years ago, they said something like most people, if they ever develop a fine arts career, and that's like a painter or whatever, they really don't get going until they're something like 60. Yeah. Something like that. And the rest is just slogging, getting established, trying to get lucky breaks. But I mean,
Wow.
that's not the case with writing, right? I mean, I think you can get there
Oh.
faster because there's more demand, but it takes a
Well,
while.
yeah, with writing, that's one of the things I appreciated about it as a career is that there's like you look at something like music and there are plenty of musicians who are in their 40s, and I think the median age of musicians in the industry is probably about 45, but it's such this youth culture focused thing where it's like, oh, like these
Yes.
19-year-olds are getting up there and going crazy, and it's the new thing, and there's the whether or not that's true, that's certainly the impression that it sort of gives. Whereas writing is more something like, you can take your time, and there'll always be the young writer who comes out the gate at like 29 or 25 and it's like, wow, they wrote this amazing thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's less of a face to writing. So
it's not performative.
It's not.
I mean, no one's going to see the author probably like performing the writing. You can be the least charismatic person in the world and still
definitely
write really well. And famously, many writers are like many writers are just awful curmudgeons, right?
which is probably why they got into it. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah,
I do wonder. Shelley Robinson, who Matan and I interviewed her. She's kind of she's a friend of mine who I work with. She is like a counselor, but she works specifically with creativity counseling. Yep. So if you're blocked or if you've got trouble like accessing your creativity or whatever, she helps you with that. And she said that lots of writers are not very confident in themselves, which doesn't surprise me, but also that the way they sort ideas is often they speak out loud to themselves. So she said like it's a really common thing of writers to just talk to themselves.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. I don't know about you, but my girlfriend's often like, I can hear you talking downstairs. Are you talking to someone? Like, no, I'm talking to I'm having conversations in my head, honey.
I'll do that when I have to, if I'm like feeling a bit hazy or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I have to get this thing done. I will talk to myself like I'm a boss. I'm like, Alex, you need to do this now. Okay. Now you need to go and do this. Like I'll literally talk to myself like, and the weird thing is it works. If I'm like, okay, do this. Yep, that was good. Now we have to go on to this thing. Like I talk to myself like I'm a kindergarten.
That makes sense, man. It's the fucking it's the bicameral mind,
Bicameral mind. What does that mean?
It's
got two cameras.
Should I get into it?
We're here now.
Okay, we're here now. Who's gonna stop us?
Do you mean it's like bifurcated? There's two different parts of it, or
no? It's much fucking crazier than that. So one of the most interesting books I've ever read was, I forget the guy's name, but he wrote this in the 80s. It's called something like The Theory of the Bicameral Mind. This book's actually it's pretty popular. A lot of people know about it. This guy spent his whole academic career researching this one central thesis that he had. And since I don't think it holds up anymore, people this is disproven. Like, great idea, bro, but unfortunately your life work's been wasted. Doesn't matter. What he thought was that primitive people, they were actually not conscious in the way that we are. Instead, the brain had like a slave master mentality. Part of the brain dictated in the head to another part of the brain, and they would hear the voice of themselves as like an audio hallucination, commanding them to do things.
Okay.
He cites all this evidence about like ancient peoples talk about like actually hearing the voices of the gods and that they're unable to resist. And he uses all this evidence, quote unquote, from like psychology about how schizophrenics will hear a voice and they're unable to resist. That was his premise, that early humanity was commanded to do everything by voices in their heads, which were like the voices of gods. And since then, something has triggered in us, and now that dictating part of ourself is the remnants that's left over. So when we hear like a voice in our head, that's like what used to be the commanding God that's now been forced down to this tiny little echo of, Alex, you should do the washing. He's like, that's insane. Later on, inner God.
So what that's like your conscience or your or like your dopamine receptors just being like,
no, it's like the brain has two selves. Like there's two selves in the brain, a master slave. Well, that's how it used to be.
Right.
Amazing book.
Yeah.
Richard Dawkins wrote a short review of it, and he said of it something like, this is either like the most incredible piece of academia, paradigm shifting treatise on the mind ever written, or it's 100% bunk.
It's nonsense.
It's nothing in between.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that, about that. Like,
feels like there's something to it.
It's the classic thing, though, isn't it? Like, where you're like, there's two sides of you, and one side's like, hey, you got to do the thing, and the other one is like, but I don't want to do the thing. And if you get really good, you can make that one go like, oh, I guess I'll do the thing, even if it doesn't want to do the thing.
Well, you do it now, right? Like you are telling yourself to do things, and like you're doing it. So
it's not like there's it's not like there's one thing who's like, I don't see the need to do this, so I'm not going to do it. Like because you wouldn't even have the idea of doing the thing. You'd just be like, nah. It's like there's always this warring or this tension of like, come on, do the thing.
Yeah, it's
I
real
think
weird.
That manifests differently through different people, but
I think it does too. Anyway, bicameral man, wrong but interesting.
Yeah, so objectively wrong, but
as far as I know, I've heard that people think it doesn't hold water now that there's more evidence about neurology and stuff.
Great phrase.
Yeah, bicameral.
Bicameral. Yeah.
Bicameral. So Eggboy.
How far have you read into it? Like
50%.
Okay. Okay, so it's just starting to get weird then.
It's starting to get weird.
It's starting to get weird.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, it starts out like at times a little funny. I mean, the guy talking about real estate is just like, yeah, this fucking guy. I know this fucking guy.
Yeah.
We've all met him and he's awful.
Yeah. And he's got a blue suit and he's got his hair back like that. And he's like, very, very, very earnest.
Yeah, that's right.
Kind of a cunt.
And he's awful to women.
Yes. Yeah, I really wanted to okay. So a lot of fiction right now that I've been reading, a lot of the best fiction I feel like is from the perspective of like this like an angry or a misandrist or just sort of like a not very nice person, and they tend to be women. It tends to be from the perspective of women. There's a lot of great books I've read recently. Like Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang is great.
Yellow Space?
Yellow Face. Yeah, it's about a white author who co-opts the work of her friend who is an Asian author who's then died.
That feels very topical.
Boy Parts by Emily Clark.
I've heard of Boy Parts.
To a degree, My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I know people love that. I wasn't as wild about that. But there's this sort of archetype of women who are like just really compelling to like be in that space and listen to, but like objectively kind of terrible people.
Interesting.
And I sort of wanted to inhabit that space because I think it's just really teethy and really interesting.
I've not heard teethy as an adjective. I really like that.
Yeah. I feel like there's just a lot of grist to that mill.
She doesn't feel particularly. Her personality doesn't feel particularly angled to me. Like clearly, she's a little bit.
She's not that nasty. I've probably dialed it back. I really wanted to play with that voice and see if I could inhabit that. And to make it really good, I talked to my girlfriend, who is obviously a lovely person, but who has a bit more perspective into that voice.
Yeah. There are some details that seem very, very real, I think.
Yeah, she really tweaked it a little bit so that I think it really popped.
Yeah, it did strike me as well. Like Alex has really inhabited what it is like to be like an early or late 20s, whatever. I'm not going to say vapid, but woman who is material and concerned with appearance and stuff.
Yeah, like someone who lives in Bondi or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you nailed that.
Well, I'm glad because I really invested a lot of time in getting that. Like, one of the things that that annoys me about horror specifically, but sci-fi as well, and a lot of genre fiction, is that people get really invested in the concept and forget the people. And it's the people that are the emotionally compelling point of the story. Which is not to say that you shouldn't have a strong concept, because that's really important too. But yeah, I wanted to strike that balance, and a lot of what I do is about that, trying to have both of those things be on an even keel.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's true. Although I think the strongest, I'm not saying your concepts are weak, but characters are definitely like your strength, which I've said to you many, many times in the past.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. I think
you write a good character.
I think I think one day I'd like to write with a really strong, conceptually driven person, and like just maybe write a book with them where they had these really good ideas, and then maybe I could flesh them out like character wise, because I like my ideas, but I don't think they're as strong as my ability to bring people to life. I think that's probably a strength.
Are there any books that are written like that, like a duo, or one person focuses on one aspect of the writing, the other person focuses on the other? I've never
I don't know.
Paul Jennings actually did something thinking about it.
With Morris Gleitzman.
Yeah, the thing about the evil sheep. I never read it. Okay.
I read quite a few of them. Yeah, they were pretty good. Admittedly, they weren't as good as either Morris Gleitzman or Paul Jennings' work individually.
Right. Okay.
I like those both for different reasons. Like Morris Gleitzman just nails that like neurotic prepubescent sort of thing.
So I mean, maybe it ends up being fiction by committee. I'm not saying it has to, but maybe that's the reason why I don't hear much of it.
Well, it's like this the supergroup thing, isn't it? Like, the idea is that you get all these really amazing people together, they'll make this incredible work, but it's not always necessarily more than the sum of its parts. Sometimes it's just
unless Dave Grohl's in it, in which case he actually ends up enhancing everything he's in.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Oh, Dave. Yeah, well, I wonder, because if someone's got an idea that's pretty out there, and the other person's like, I'm not sure about this, you'd have a tendency to curb it for the sake of the other person. But sometimes it's those weird eccentricities about writing that make it really engaging. I'm going to use Hilary Mantel, because I always use Hilary Mantel, because she is the best. She, in Wolf Hall, jumps between present tense and past tense freely, and she jumps between first person and third person freely. She just flows in and out of them in a way that an editor or like a co-writer would say, you got to fix this up. Like this seems like a mistake. And she might say, no, I'm doing it for this reason, this reason, this reason. But the co-writer might say, yeah, I get it, but
let's unpack that though, because you say in the way that you read it, it's something that you've noticed, but it's not something you've brought up as a weakness, right? It's clearly something
not a weakness.
You brought it up as So it would be my assertion or my assumption that it's a classic thing of the old, you have to know the rules before you can break it. Yeah. I have a feeling she's got a very strong sense of both of those mediums, first person and third. I've never read much of her stuff apart from the first Wolf Hall, but I'd assume
you never finished that though, did you?
No, I didn't. And it's not because I didn't think it was good, because I did, but it's so rich. I almost just couldn't. There was too much.
It's a dense Christmas fruitcake of a book.
Yeah, it's very dense, and it's not even something I wouldn't like. In the same way as the game that you gave me.
Disco Elysium.
Disco Elysium. Yeah.
That's a dense fruitcake of a game.
I don't want to say that I didn't like that, and I don't want to play it, because I do want to play it, but it's so dense that I have to like steal myself for it. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do. It's the sort of thing that if you're not willing to invest a vast amount of your brain into, it's not gonna. It's not gonna
right
work.
Now, like that game especially. I actually really do want to play it, but it's no. And I'm not trying to make excuses here. I actually do legitimately want to play it, and I do plan to play it, but I have to be ready for it. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yes. If you're not, it's like a Stanley Kubrick film. Like you can't watch something like that casually. It's you need to give it 100%, right?
Yeah, you need to butter up that popcorn and sit down, you lazy boy. And
exactly. 5-minute shots that are just a spaceship docking.
Yeah, 2001, man. I saw Moon recently.
Yeah, you were saying great film, huh?
Yeah, and I only realized like about halfway through, like how much it was not cribbing, but definitely referencing.
I don't know what that word means.
Cribbing means like taking from.
Cribbing.
So much to the point where the lead actor, if you look at him, especially like the secondary version of him, the other version that comes later.
Very mild spoilers.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, okay. Like he looks very similar to the actor in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like very similar.
Okay, it's been a while since I've seen both, but I can imagine like preppy astronaut.
No, but like they look physically very similar.
Okay.
But
and it's got the AI as well. That
and then
there's the whole setting on the
twist
moon
at the end with the AI. That was a nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
that might not have even been conscious on their part. I mean, it might, but like 2001's got such a long shadow.
Yeah. It did seem very like a few of those references did seem very pointed. It seemed like, and don't get me wrong, it's still, what are you there? It was still, you could appreciate it on its own merits. It was a great movie, really good movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun things with that concept.
Oh, definitely. The special effects, I think, were all models as well. Like where they have like the moon rovers and stuff like that in the base, all tiny models, and they looked really, really good because of it.
Yeah. Practical effects, man. They're great.
Practical effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were we talking about? Hilary Mantel?
I mean, look, I will talk about Hilary Mantel, but I shouldn't talk about Hilary Mantel. So let's not talk about Hilary Mantel. I'm going to steer it back to Eggboy.
Okay.
With it being funny, like I know you've said before that sometimes, I mean, I've read your stuff, and sometimes it's funny, and you said you weren't intending it, but I don't even understand. I mean, to me, it just seemed like the beginning thing with the real estate guy, like,
Yeah.
that was, that's funny, right?
Like, okay,
It's
so
not half funny, but it's like, yeah, okay, you're smiling as you're reading it.
yeah.
No?
Did you mean like the fact that he's like saying the thing and you like know that situation?
It's like real estate
very
is so
Sydney.
hot right now, like
Yeah.
it's type, and they're trapped in a conversation with this idiot, and the book starts with that, and it's like, you are bored, and it's like, yes, I am.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
I am. Yeah, I don't know. Not funny, like wryly amusing. How about that?
Yeah, it's sardonically humorous. Yeah, like there's definitely a tongue-in-cheekness to how it's all written, I think.
Yeah.
I'm just disappointed that you haven't read the rest of it, because then you would.
I'm sorry to
It's probably for the
disappoint you.
best, actually, so there's no spoilers. But there's very much a tonal shift.
She's chosen the wrong door after leaving the bathroom. So I
Yeah.
just got up to that part. She's gone into the room with the red lights.
Yes, yeah, that's where things really start getting a bit spooky.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'll be interested to see how you find it land.
Yeah.
But I definitely made a point of trying to flesh out that character. For like, I spent an inordinate amount of time on that scene in the bathroom with her, like looking and seeing like the crow's feet, and being
that's
like,
great. It's really, really good. That seems
I'm glad
fantastic.
you like that, because I did really try to lean into that and be like, what would this actually be like? And Liz helped out with that a lot.
I can tell. Yeah, it feels very authentically her. Not authentically Liz, but this character feels very authentic.
Good.
Which is hard to do. Like writing a character authentically who you are not.
Who you are, yeah. I mean, that is, I guess, the act of authorship, isn't it? But it's very easy to portray someone in a way that is maybe a little bit disingenuous, and I really strive not to do that. Especially with like it'd be so easy to make this character into just a parody,
a two-dimensional. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I really didn't want to do that. I wanted to be like, no, this is a person who has probably got some trauma and some stuff going on, and is also maybe just at a little bit of a loss right now with where she is in her life. So like, don't judge her too harshly.
Yeah, I like that. It's really, there's something to be said for, I mean, obviously, like trusting the audience, right? If you want to imply something subtle about a character's backstory or something that troubles a character, there's the temptation to, you mention it as many times as you can get away with, because you really want to make sure the audience knows that, this character has a problem with their father or something. But you do it like 1.5 times.
Yeah.
And it's
so
far, but it's just enough, which is really nice, like trusting the audience to get it. I don't know, like the risk of that is you don't do it enough and the audience doesn't get it. But I guess in a short story, you can get away with that more, because you would have, like, if you mention it once, it's only going to be like 10 pages at most since you mentioned it, so the audience isn't going to forget the thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest sins that authors commit, and it's one that I really strive not to do, and I think I generally tend towards subtlety as opposed to overextension anyway, is I think that sense of not trusting the audience, like not guessing that they're going to get it. Like that to me, when like, and that comes down to as granular a level as adjectives, like you can tell.
Yes.
You can tell how, let me think of how to phrase this. So you can tell how much experience an author has based on how they use adjectives. And it's not because using adjectives is bad, right? There's nothing like a well-placed adjective is good. But if you say like, let's say two characters are in what's clearly a confrontational situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe someone's getting up and they're like, oh no, I don't want to pay for this part of the bill. I've only eaten this much. And another character's like, well, come on, you're sitting here with us. Like, we've all, we're just splitting this thing. It's an antagonistic situation. If you go into that and say like, well, that's not fair, Bill growled. Like, for example, like that signals to me that you don't trust your prose enough to convey the fact that he's growling or whatever it is through the context, as opposed to the like if you feel the need to bolster it with that,
agreed.
You could say not trusting the audience, but I think it's really not trusting yourself to have conveyed that. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's,
I do.
I think that's where a lot of beginner authors kind of fall off a little.
Yeah, the road to hell is paved with adverbs.
Yeah, exactly.
Stephen King, that's one.
Adverbs. I always get adjectives and adverbs in this.
I know. I'm shocked as well. I'm trying to get better because I'm actually teaching this stuff. But
yeah.
Like,
it keeps you honest.
The class doesn't know that I'm only like one step ahead of them in terms of like understanding the foundations of English.
Ahead of a kid.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Though at the same time, I don't think it's a sin to say Bill growled. It is a hallmark of a really good author. But for the rest of us, I think we can. I mean, this is me feeling like a teacher, but like it's okay. It's okay to do it sometimes, and then you build up.
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right.
I
Hallmark
agree.
is like only the best descriptive words chosen. When they're there, they're like, ooh, good use of descriptive word. And when they're not amazing, you don't use them. I think that pretty much more or less sums up that.
Yeah, I mean, for my thing, that like I did use that example specifically because the clearest example of that is that he said.
Yep.
And beginner authors will think, well, I can't just keep saying he said. No, you can. You can. It just fades into obscurity.
Yeah.
You can 100% do that. You'd like, ironically, any other word will stick out. It'll stick out. And if you use more than one of them, God help you.
Well,
but
King taught me this, man. King taught me this in on writing. And maybe you're the same.
Yeah, it's in the book.
Yeah.
It's in...
I think he's a little too hardline on it. He actually says, like, do not use anything but he said.
Well, he is, but then it's very much a do as I say, not as I do thing.
I wonder if because he's teaching, he's erring on the side of he wants to teach the lesson and then he expects you to break it later. Yeah.
Because he even says that. He says, like, look, I'm just as guilty of doing this as anyone else. But,
right.
But yeah, it like, I mean, we can't all be what's the guy who did
Stephen King?
No.
Hemingway?
No, he did the book about... just keep saying names.
I will.
No. Tolstoy? No. He did the book about the butler. Have you read it? The Last of the Day. The Remains of the Day.
I've heard of it.
Ishiguro.
Oh, yeah, and it's unreliable. Wait, that sounds like a Japanese author.
Yeah.
And there's a butler?
He is a Japanese author. I think he may be British, but he has a Japanese... I'm not really sure.
Is it an unreliable narrator story?
That one, no, I don't think so. The Remains of the Day. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Okay. Is it a butler talking up his aristocratic master and speaking so highly of him, but over the course of the book, you kind of get the implication that his master's kind of a dick and the whole aristocracy situation's awful and he's an unreliable narrator?
You're right. It is that. Okay. It's just been too long since I
haven't read it, taught it in a class about unreliable narrators.
Wait, you haven't... So you haven't read it, but you've taught it, and and you were explaining the unreliable
one step ahead, man. That's
which I have read and didn't get.
On the internet, no one knows you're a dog.
There's just so many levels of irony in that. But no, I think you are right. Yes, yeah.
I was just looking up examples of unreliable narrators. I'm like, oh, that seems like a cool concept.
Yeah. I honestly didn't pick that up, but reading it back again, I think you are correct. But anyway, his whole thing apparently is going through and not putting any adverbs in, like any at all, or maybe even descriptors until the end of the book, and then he'll go and insert the ones that he needs to. Like, I've heard that's what he does.
I like that.
I
wouldn't do that, but I like it. Like, I wonder if that's as a result of using them too much. Like, that strikes me as someone who maybe got some feedback about their overuse of descriptors and like, well, I'm going the opposite direction. And like, I'm safety proofing my work against bad descriptors.
And the adverb thing is, you have to realize it's a symptom rather than a cause. What
do you mean?
Well, going back to the trusting your work thing, it's not so much that adverbs bad, don't use adverbs. That's not really the point. The point is you want to trust your writing to be able to convey things in as an effective way as possible. Like you can kind of sub out trusting your writing or trusting the audience. I prefer trusting the audience. That's how I prefer to phrase it, because you can keep that person in mind and be like, do I trust that you're going to get this? Like, do I feel like I have to talk down to you? And if they're a cogent enough audience, you're going to be like, oh, well, this is fine. They'll get it. I know what I'm doing. So another thing is you can think of it in terms of, well, is this maybe that's something that someone will catch on the second read through,
What do you mean?
Well, is this maybe something that you finish the story, then you go, wait, hang on. And then you reread it and you go, oh, okay, I'm picking up all those parts that I missed in the first read.
Are you talking about using adverbs and adjectives as ways of indicating subtle information?
No. What I'm saying is trusting your audience enough to expect that they will go through it and maybe they'll catch most of the stuff, but assume there's a lot of subtler detail that they might catch on a second pass through, rereading the story again at a later date.
I don't understand what you mean by that, because who rereads stories? I mean, some people do,
Oh,
but
I do.
why would you write with the expectation that someone's going to reread?
Well, it's the same reason as like, why would you rewatch a film or why would you replay a game?
I suppose so.
Look, that might be a personal thing of mine. I want to like suck as much out of a single piece of media as I can. I want to juice that rather than go on to something else and have a shallow take on it. So that might be a personal thing.
No, I kind of get it. Like, I do like subtle works as well. Like, I do like a film that leaves you thinking, oh, that's interesting. I'm sure there's more to that than meets the eye. And then you go on the rabbit Reddit holes rabbit Reddit holes? Reddit holes. Just call it rabbit.
The rabbit Reddit holes.
I was on a good subreddit the other day.
Yeah.
Okay, I get what you mean. It's provided I understand what you're talking about, and I'm only 60% sure you are.
Well, why don't you explain it to me, and I'll
Instead, I'm going to go on a different tangent because this is on my mind and I'm going to forget it otherwise. I agree that adjectives and adverbs, you should, lean toward trusting the audience. Although I don't think it is just that. I think it's also learning what to point the camera at and what not to.
Yes.
Again, I was teaching class on descriptive writing, which was I actually really learned a lot myself in the research for that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And thinking about descriptors as a camera. I want to find this, actually, it's a quote by a Redditor / Rabbitor. I wanted to credit the particular Rabbitor that wrote this, but unfortunately they've deleted their account. But anyway, so the question that was asked on Reddit, how descriptive is too descriptive? And someone goes and talks about how they wrote this thing and they showed it to their friends and their friends said, yeah, it's good, but like it's overwritten. And they're like, what does overwritten mean? Okay, this is this sub-Rabbitor's answer.
Okay.
Think of a movie versus an art gallery. Imagine in a movie, if instead of showing you the story, they zoomed in on everything in the scene and you could see every little detail. The couch, the coffee cup, the doorknob. You'd shut it off immediately because who wants to see all that? But in an art gallery, people stop and inspect every little detail of a painting, then move on to the next. 90% of your book should be like a movie, and maybe 10% of it like an art gallery. Your desire to over-describe is like treating the book 100% as an art gallery experience. Some readers might enjoy that, but most will not. I was like, damn, yeah, I think that absolutely nails it.
Yeah.
Know what to zoom in on, like know where the camera should linger and where it shouldn't. And if the camera's lingering everywhere, the movie's going to feel unfocused and overly long.
Yeah. That is the art of narrative.
Cinematography.
And cinematography and writing are very similar. Like there's a really strong through line. Like
I think there is.
I prefer books as a medium because I just like the, I guess, co-creation of being able to actually invent it as I go. I kind of prefer that than seeing how someone else thought of it. But it's very much the same thing, like you're observing someone else's interpretation of this thing. A movie just happens to be a little bit more literal, this is exactly what it was. Like it's less disputable, less.
Do you think there's?
Do you know what I mean?
I do. Do you think there's crossover between the kind of film that you like and the kind of literature you like? Like taking this cinematography as or descriptive writing as cinematography thing?
Definitely.
Okay.
So I tend to like sounds like such a weird thing to say, but I like movies that tend to be about 90 minutes, not much more than that, and I like short books as well. My favorite kind of book is actually a novella, like maybe about 30,000 words. I think
that's a good
most
spot.
of what you can convey would be in that. There are some very, very good books that are longer than that I like a lot, but they're rare for me. Like something like Jonathan Franzen's is it Freedom? Is it Freedom? I think it is Freedom. Yeah, Freedom. The one with the bird on it. Anyway, that's a great book. It's a great, huge, massive tome. Love that book.
Yep.
And the one I read recently, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow as well.
That's a good name.
It's from Macbeth. It's quite good Shakespeare.
Ah, okay. Yeah, right. Yeah, just mind Shakespeare and you're good.
Yeah, I guess he knew what he was doing.
I seem to.
But generally I like things that are very tightly focused, very like we're going to go from point to point to point, because that's just my thing. I just like just give me the important parts, you know, like the number one thing that I'll always say about a movie if I don't like it, it will usually be it was too long. That was my whole thing with Oppenheimer as well. I was like, I thought that would have been a great 90-minute movie, but it was just too long for me. And
I don't think they could have made it a 90-minute movie and done justice to it. But I understand where you're coming from. It was very long.
Fair enough. And that's just my preference anyway. But I like the same genres as well, like sci-fi and horror in general. Although I think horror is just a tricky genre. It's just
horror is a tricky genre. Yeah.
It's
a lot of
very technical.
A lot of filler.
Yeah. Well, do you mean in terms of like movies?
I just mean there's a lot of films that I think are trash in horror. Just my opinion. And I know some people have a really high tolerance for B-grade horror. I don't know. I
do. I do as well. Yeah,
my friend Julian does, and all my friends from my high school friend group do. So we used to go to Julian's house and watch this B-grade horror, and they're like cackling to themselves and laughing. I'm so fucking bored. Like I'm like, this is so bad, guys. Like, you know, this is bad. Why are we watching this objectively bad film?
The reason for that is that horror is it's almost, I'd say, the most self-referential genre. It's so aware of itself and what it's doing. Like good horror does it intentionally. Bad horror does it unintentionally. It's just so like you read a horror book and they'll talk about other horror writers in it. Like you can't read a horror book without some oblique reference to King and Lovecraft.
Why is that? Why is it so self-referential? Is it like a cultic? The people that love it just really, really love it, and that has something to do with the emotions that it elicits in you? Because more than any other genre, except maybe comedy, which isn't really a genre, horror is dependent on eliciting emotion.
Yeah. Well, I think you hit on something there with horror, like with comedy. I think what's his name? He did Us and
Stephen King, Jordan Peele.
Jordan Peele. He said horror is like comedy, but it's harder because it doesn't have a punchline. Like they're kind of inextricably linked.
Is like comedy, but it's harder because it doesn't have a punchline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Horror is like comedy without the punchline, and that's what makes it more difficult to pull off.
I can't really get my head around that. It sounds profound and true, but I'm like, why? It's so
well. Think about it like this.
Okay.
Like comedy, a joke is like tension is built and it's built and it's built, and then
there's the badum.
It's released, and
but isn't that the same as horror? It's released and then like the teens are decapitated in the woods.
Yeah, I suppose so.
But I guess the horror the tension isn't allowed to go away at that point. Maybe that is
like the tension like it goes for a lot longer. You have to maintain the tension because you can't have a joke that doesn't resolve within about, I don't know, let's say like, unless you have a really long extended like meta joke, you can't have a joke that goes for more than like 90 seconds. Do you know what I mean? A gag.
Okay.
Like, so it's this much shorter cycle. Whereas horror, like you just keep piling it on and like to maintain that is very difficult.
Yeah, you need to keep prolonging the magic, so to speak. That's actually very true. Like comedy is ba-dum ching, ba-bum ching.
Yeah,
horror's like
it's a quicker cycle. Yeah, it just keeps.
You don't get the ching. That's the point. There might be a ching at the end. Or there's a small ching and you're like, oh, that's the ching. But it wasn't the ching, and there's a real ching at the end, which is bigger.
Well, the best thing is when you actually get a comedy beat in there, and that like dispels a little bit of the tension. Like if you can, like hardy.
That's the term, man.
Hardy, yeah. Hardy, exactly. I'm sure it's a thing. Well, it's a bit. It happens a little bit. I
think you might have invented something.
It happens a little bit in Get Out.
Yeah, it does happen in Get Out. What happens in all his films, I think. He always adds some comedy in there.
Yeah.
Which I love his films. I love them despite the fact that he does the comedy horror hybrid, because that's actually not something that really interests me. Like I want my dark things dark and my light things light typically. But he straddles. He does the multi-genre thing where you feel like you're watching several different films mashed together. Yeah. And man, he does it well.
Yeah. What was the most recent one?
The thing that I raved about on Facebook.
The Thing from the Sky.
The Thing from the Sky.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope is it's just a masterclass in I don't even know what. Like it's just I saw it and I was blown away. But
me too. Me too.
Okay, so I saw two movies in one night, and I was in America with my girlfriend Liz, and we were at a drive-in, and it was just
She
amazing.
mentioned. Yeah.
If you ever go to a drive-in, man, you have to do it. They're so cool, so chintzy, so much fun. There's popcorn and stuff. You hook speakers. It's great. We saw The Black Phone.
Oh, how was that? I really wanted to see that film. I hear it was quite good.
It was good. It was, for what it was very tight. It was actually written by the son of Stephen King.
Oh, really?
And you can tell. It's very King adjacent. Not to its deficit. But we saw that, and then before that we saw Nope. And The Black Phone was really good. It was a really solid movie. I really enjoyed it. Like, it was exactly what it needed to be. And I thought it was great. But I didn't think about it for as long as I thought of Nope. Like, it was just
Nope's been in my head ever since I saw it.
Such a it's only really got that one horror scene, but holy crap! You know where the people get.
I do. I think there's a few horror scenes, but I know what you mean. Like, there's one stretch of it that's horror, and then the rest.
Yeah,
but man, that's horrific.
It's so horrific. It's so visceral. Like, it's probably the most, like, you just
feel it.
You know you know what that sensation is, because it's so visceral, and the sound is there.
His use of sound in that film is something else, man.
Yeah.
So clever. Yeah.
He's like, that guy is a legitimate genius.
I think he is a genius. I don't think that movie was perfect. Like, I loved it, but I don't think, like, there were little flaws, and I still loved it. So I can see this guy getting better and better.
Yeah.
Like, all of these movies I've thought, like, there's aspects of it I don't like, even so I'm going to give it 95 out of 100.
Yeah. Well, it sprawls. There's something really sprawling about it. Just how big it is, and how many different
scope of his
elements,
ideas,
and it goes real action movie at the end, and it's this sprawling, like, massive, almost a bit clunky, but it's just so good.
Yeah, that's the complaint that I saw. Like, I really like Rotten Tomatoes. Not everyone does, but the critics that, like, Rotten Tomatoed it said there's too many ideas. It's too much. It's too much of a pastiche. It doesn't come together. I'm like, I get it. Like, that is a totally fair criticism of his stuff. But it
wasn't perfect. It was definitely not perfect, but it was great.
Yeah,
it's almost great despite how sprawling it was. Like,
I know.
Weird thing.
I do feel like he tried to shoehorn the title of the film in a lot.
Did they say that?
They say Nope a few times. I'm like,
okay. All right,
you're only saying it because it's the name of the movie, dude.
Yeah. See, I like that specific Nope. Like, I'll have a very specific context where I'll say that. Like, that specific thing.
You're noping on out of here?
Like, if something fucky's happening, and I'm just like, this isn't happening, I'll just be like, nope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought it was very resonant. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, he's excellent. And here's the lull.
That's okay. We can edit the lull out.
I mean, how long have we been going? This might be a nice place to call it.
I'm happy to call it here. Listeners, we know you're out there. We know
you're out there. We can see you.
Yeah, we know there are several of you that listen to this show, and we really love that. And honestly, we'd like to get some of your feedback on how we could make this show better, and what we could sort of do, and what other things we could incorporate. If you'd like us to focus on certain things, like more, you want to hear more stuff about movies, or more stuff about video games, or more about writing, because we're all writers.
Or focus on less things if there's stuff that, like, this segment doesn't work or whatever. Like, we're still throwing stuff at the wall, so we really would like your feedback.
And the best way to do that is we have a new contact form that is in the link down the bottom on whatever podcast app you're listening to do it.
Alex did a very good job with the contact form. It's I'm doing the chef's kiss hand.
It was like 5 minutes. It's fine.
5 beautiful minutes.
So look, click on that. It'll take you to a page. You can just fill in your details, and let us know what you think. If you have any questions for us, if there's more stuff you'd like to hear, just whatever, just say hi. Honestly, just be like, hey, we like the show, or this sucks. You guys need to get off the air. I mean, hopefully it won't be that, but hey,
that's a kind of feedback. It
is definitely a kind of feedback.
If we get 100% and it's that might be the universe telling us something.
If we get 100% of that, we probably won't request for any more feedback.
No, that's more likely. We're just like, nah, that doesn't count.
You're like, that's illegitimate.
Like,
we're kind of, it's more of like an enclosed bubble of a show. We don't really need
the defensive filter.
Please reach out and let us know what you think, and let us know what you'd like to see more of, because we we make it for you guys.
Yeah.
And I think we can probably wrap it there.
I think we can wrap it there. This was fun.
It was fun. Thank you for reading my story, Paddy. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm only halfway done, but
yeah. Well, let me know what you think of it at the end. Hopefully, like I said, it does change the tone of it a little bit. So I will be interested to see how you find the final portion of that. But I'm pretty happy with it. I think it hits that horror note pretty well without being too like chintzy.
I don't know what that means.
Just being a bit too like, woo. I think
rubber skeleton.
It's not too rubber skeleton. I don't think.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let you know. I mean, if nothing else, the title of the story is great. Like Eggboy is that works.
Yes. He is a.
Who is Eggboy? What is Eggboy?
Well, you'll find out.
I will. Yeah, I will. All right. Yeah, this was fun, man. We should do more of these.
Well, you got to collect them all with because you've done one with James now, and you know like one with me. I think you've done one with me before, actually.
You got to catch them all.
Yeah, got to catch them all. Get Matan, get Ali.
I'd like to do one with Matan. I feel like that'd be very heartfelt. I feel like we'd both come away crying, but feeling better for it. You know,
Matan's very earnest. He's a very earnest.
He is
individual,
earnest. He is earnest. Yeah, he is the best of us.
He is the best of us. Yes. That's true. He's a sweetheart. We'll see you guys next week then with this little extra-sode. Peace out.
Precipice out.
You're listening to Pros and Cons, the Precipice Fiction podcast.